What's going on, everybody? Nick here. So, title of the video, I made $102,514 the other month, and I wanted to give you guys a comprehensive breakdown of exactly how I did it in this video, including a detailed walkthrough of my Stripe, the strategy I used to come up with the products and the services that I sold. I wanted to give you guys a look into the daily step-by-step actions you need to take to actually make money like this, which I feel like a lot of people leave out. And I also want to talk about the principles and the mindset behind what I think is necessary in order to make this amount of money consistently. Before anybody accuses me of being a trust fund kid, my family was bankrupt for the majority of my childhood, so I consider this video basically my obligation to help give back to kids that may be in a similar situation to where I was growing up. So this is going to be a realistic look at what it takes in order to make this amount of money, specifically in the service agency and then the coaching space. If this sounds like something that you guys want to learn more about, potentially figure out how to do for yourselves, then stay tuned and let's get into it. All right, so the way this video is going to work is I'm actually going to give you guys like a line item by line item breakdown of all of the various revenue sources that went into that $102,514. I'm going to share my strategy behind it, the products and services that I sell, the various like deliverables that I need to maintain on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis in order to like make that money. And basically you guys are just going to get my unfiltered thoughts on everything top to bottom. So the first thing I'm going to show you guys is just my Stripe. The reason why is because in videos like this is what people expect to see at the beginning. As you can see, I processed $97,778.60 through Stripe. It was almost double what I processed the previous period. And this is all from August the 1st to August the 31st. I have various revenue spikes. I now have some MRR, which was pretty new to me because I wasn't processing a lot of that stuff through Stripe. I have about 200 new customers, although keep in mind that a lot of these are waitlist customers that aren't actually active. I'll get into that later. Same thing with active and then new subscribers and stuff like that. So never in my life did I think I would be almost seeing like a six-figure Stripe amount on a monthly basis. That kind of blows my mind, but let me break down exactly what went into that money. All right, so my first big revenue source here was my automation agency, which yielded me $25,061.43 in the month of August. If you're unfamiliar with my automation agency, maybe you're new here, it's called leftclick.ai, and our whole pitch is we build hands-off growth systems for B2B founders. So we help you find the perfect offer, we help you automate your lead acquisition, and solve your project management woes, all while scaling your B2B business to 8 figures. If you click this button, you will book an intro call with yours truly. You have to fill out, like a little form here to run through some questions about your business and that sort of thing. And now we also offer, when I say we, I say that loosely. It's really just me and a virtual assistant right now. But we offer, some standardized retainer packages that you can actually just purchase with a click. So previously, I did call only. Now you can just buy this with just one click on a little Stripe page. So yeah, I'll run you through everything that you guys need to know about this business. Basically, I set this up. I guess this would be like 2022 now, right around the time that ChatGPT came out. The reason why is because I noticed that, well, one, I was running another business, which I'll show you guys the revenue for in a second, but I was running another business that depended on people not really knowing about ChatGPT and not really understanding AI. So when AI came out, when ChatGPT hit the books and everybody was like, holy crap, I can just have AI write my shit now. I was a little bit lost and I was pretty scared, to be honest. I was like, oh Jesus, like my competitive edge is gone. So me and my business partner at the time, we asked ourselves, hey, listen, if our current business is declining because of AI, is there any business that would take off because of AI? And this is the first one that came to mind. It was helping people implement automation and AI flows into their businesses to help them like increase their leverage, right? Fire their staff members, that sort of thing. I don't say that because I'm evil. Like I don't want people to fire their staff members, as I have so commonly been accused of. But this is a big thing that most business owners are thinking about. How do I get rid of staff, replace them with robots at a tenth of the price, right? So anyway, I started out doing most of my lead sourcing through Upwork primarily. The reason why is because that was just the simplest. Upwork is like the simplest and most straightforward place to go to if you have no established portfolio, no real history. I had sort of a unique approach because I would record a customized video of me solving the problem that they listed on their proposal. It usually take me like 3 to 5 minutes. And then I just give them the whole video. And sometimes I'd even give them the system that they asked for in the proposal. Obviously, this necessitated me being really good at automation systems, which I consider myself to be, one of the foremost experts on a particular software platform, which is called make.com. But that crushed it. I did really, really well on Upwork in just a couple of months. And yeah, that helped me build like a lot of foundational, I want to say client management knowledge in this space. So that's my recommendation to anybody that is in automation agencies or wants to, learn how to do this sort of thing. The number one most important thing for you is just to get some clients under your belt. The second that you understand like the real scope of one or two projects, you are so much further ahead than everybody else that's just spinning their wheels thinking about how to build the perfect business. Anywho, after that, I looked into cold email because I was using that quite heavily for my content business, which I'll again get into in a second. And I ran a number of offers that didn't really work. They didn't really make any money until I found one that did, that was specifically selling the same system I was using to sell them. So I was selling them on a cold email system using cold email. And from there, my revenue was able to scale all the way up to about $72,000 a month, a little bit over. And that's where I peaked. And immediately after that, I started thinking about other ways that I could scale my income even further, which is what sort of takes me to today with YouTube and stuff like that. So if I break this down into actual services that I provide, here's more or less what it looks like. The first thing I provide is consulting. So I'll provide both one-off consulting, and then I'll do consulting as part of my monthly retainers. And what I mean by consulting is, a business owner will come to me with a problem. And the problem, to be honest, the vast majority of the time is I'm not getting enough business. I don't have enough leads. I don't have enough throughput through my pipeline. And then they just ask me, Nick, what would you do in my shoes? How do you think you would solve it? And so as you can imagine, this has got to be one of the most interesting careers that, you could possibly pick. I'm not meaning like, what's it like Deloitte? I'm not talking about that kind of consulting, which I think is just super unnecessary and bloated most of the time, where people just hire consultants to justify some managerial decision. I'm talking about like real boots on the ground consulting of like a small to mid-sized business. Like, how do I go from $50,000 a month to $100,000 a month? Nick, what would you do? It's got to be one of the most interesting things in the world. So I will, ask them everything about their business. I'll learn whatever I can. I will oftentimes create documents or resources like roadmaps or step-by-steps or SOPs or simple systems that I've seen work really well at the other businesses that I've consulted with. And, in that way, I basically become stronger every time that I get a new client because I learn, either a new vertical or a new problem set or a new limiting belief on behalf of my client and that sort of thing. So consulting's pretty awesome. I'm a big fan of it. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the job. I'm sure you guys could tell, but I really like talking. I will never shut the fuck up. I'm kidding. So that's that. The second thing I do is I do one-off automation projects. So when I say one-off automation projects, I mean like I will build out systems using this platform, make.com, for companies. This is like primarily the first few months of my automation agency, where this is mostly what I was doing. So, somebody would be like, hey, Nick, I want a system that scrapes a web page or something, and then, helps me update some database. And I would build out a scraper that would scrape the web page maybe every day or every week or something like that. Then it would send a request to some server, which would catch it, then upload it to the database. Pretty simple stuff. This is a simple 4-module system that I'm just using internally for my own business. It runs once an hour, scrapes the member count of my community, Make Money with Make.com, and then queues up a message. But yeah, as I'm sure you can imagine, these can grow more or less arbitrarily complex. Now, the issue with one-off automation projects, just before I continue, is, well, there are two. The first issue is you're treated as a builder, not like a strategy person or like a partner. Like when you do one-off automation projects, most of the time, people sort of already know what they want from you, and then they just give the project to you, and they're like, hey, I just want somebody that can do it. Basically, like I've already done the blueprint. I just want, a pair of hands to go out there and actually build it out. And this is okay. And you can still make a ton of money with it, right? Like I made a ton of money doing one-off automation projects, nothing wrong with it whatsoever. At one point, my hourly rate went from like before it was maybe like $100 an hour to all the way up to like $400 an hour, just building like a couple systems, dragging and dropping modules across the screen. It's incredible. But like if you really want to unlock actual leverage, you can't just be a builder forever. You need to scale past the building, and you need to scale into like strategy and like partnership. And so one-off automation products make that really difficult. That's problem number one. Problem number two is the cost per acquisition on one of these one-off automation projects can be pretty high. Like if a one-off automation project for a cold email system, which is something that I very commonly build, it's like, I don't know, $2,000 or something like that. If the cost per acquisition for that is $200, then I'm basically giving up 10% of the project every time I win one, right? So I'm only ever making 90% on that project. This is just sort of how it is. These are big projects. There's several $1,000s worth. So typically you need to pay a little bit more in order to acquire it. So I thought long and hard about how I was going to beat this. And what I and my business partner ended up coming up with was monthly retainers. It's not like we revolutionized, consulting or anything, or the automation agency space. Retainers are obviously well known as a business model, but if you think about it, monthly retainers allow you to go from being just some guy that builds to like actually taking that step towards being a partner or being a consultant or a strategist. Because instead of somebody just handing you something and saying, okay, now do it, you say, hey, what are your goals? Your goals are this. Okay, over the next few months, here's how we can get there. We could build this system, we could build that system, we could build that system. And then they start trusting you a lot more, obviously. It becomes substantially easier to upsell your services. And you also get pretty sticky because if you think about it, like your fingers are sort of in every pot, right? Like if you're on a monthly retainer with somebody, you're probably building out systems for their CRMs, you're building out systems for their project management systems, PMs, you're building out systems for like, I don't know, their onboarding, right? Their email. You have access to everything, right? A lot of the time people don't really want to let you go because they're just like, well, that guy kind of runs my whole business. So this is where my monthly retainer option comes in. And this is where I started selling these like fractional COO packages that were anywhere from like $4,400 a month to right now where they're $6,900 a month. So I have a pretty strong retainer base. And this is just one of the reasons why I feel honestly pretty good on like a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. I'm never really concerned about my money because I know that like no matter what, as long as I continue doing good service for these customers, I'm good. In terms of my actual like day-to-day service for monthly retainers, I do a weekly call. So it's like a consulting or strategy call. In the strategy call, I will cover everything that I've done in the last week. Then I'll cover, sometimes I'll cover like current news if it's industry relevant. And then I'll cover like proposed systems for the next week. And then a lot of the time, this just ends up being like me helping them solve hot button problems as well with my consulting knowledge, as I mentioned earlier. So that's part of the monthly retainer. In the past, I offered like an hourly package. So I might do something that equates to about $100 an hour. So maybe you buy 40 hours and then you spend $4,000 and you get about 40 hours or so. I've moved away from that just because I don't really like my value being framed in terms of hours. I much prefer my value being framed just in terms of like my business relationship. There's that old adage with the plumber where like the plumber will, I don't know, like come to some woman's house and then he'll make one knock and then it'll fix the woman's pipes and he'll be like, that'll be $500. And she's really pissed off at him because he's like, you just spent 5 seconds. Why am I paying you $500 for 5 seconds? Obviously, the moral of the story is you're not paying me for the 5 seconds. You're paying me for the years it took me to get to the point where I could solve your problem in 5 seconds. So yeah, I don't really like framing my services in terms of hours anymore, but I'm not going to lie to you guys. It's the easiest way to get started with an automation agency. And if you get started with a monthly retainer, if like you work with somebody on an hourly basis to start, it's so easy to transition to a monthly retainer because you say, well, listen, I'll give you a discount on the $50 an hour. And now you only pay me 40, but then you just got to buy like, 50 hours prepay or something like that. So yeah, that's more or less it in a nutshell. Those 3 services: consulting, one-off automation, and the monthly retainers. The second revenue source that contributed to the $102,000 was my content agency, 1 Second Copy, which yielded $12,209.16. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my content agency, this is our website. We essentially do books, blogs, and magazine articles for, like agencies, mostly SaaS companies, fintech companies at this point, I would say. And the way that we do this is we operate like an internal content pipeline in ClickUp that will assign work to people as necessary, template out tasks, and then the writers will use artificial intelligence to help sort of bootstrap themselves, write a little bit faster and better. And really like the value prop here is we do an arbitrage on, like usually the projects that we get, we charge a flat per word rate on. So we will charge like 9 cents a word, right? 9 or 10 cents or something like that. I'm not even really involved in the day-to-day management anymore, so I have to check. Okay, so 8 cents a word. Now, I think most of them is probably 9 cents a word. So we'll charge 9 cents a word, right? So if somebody wants a 1,000-word article, then that's $90. But then the way that most other agencies will do it is they will hire writers and then pay them a fraction of that. And they'll say, well, we charge 9 cents a word. We're going to pay our writers 5 cents a word. Then we're going to make 4 cents a word, right? And that seems pretty cool. But the real trick to 1 Second Copy was when we moved away from paying writers on a per word basis and we moved towards paying them on an hourly basis instead. Hourly payments for payroll, like if you run any sort of business that has staff or contractors or whatnot, a lot of people consider that dangerous because, products can quickly go over scope. But if you're smart about how you train your staff and if you implement systems that allow projects to, or force projects to be under scope constantly, under budget constantly, then you avoid that. And you can usually make multiples on what you would have paid a contractor for a fixed price job. If that all sounds like magic to you, let me just put it this way. For that $90 article, if we paid our writers $50 for that, we would have made $40, right? As opposed to that, if we instead just paid one writer at $15 an hour and it took them 2 hours to do the job, then it's only costing us $30 and then we make $60 instead of $40. So it's like basically 1.5x the profit. So the second that we started implementing this, we brought in artificial intelligence, obviously, and that made our writers write even faster and even better. And so we were able to like, basically just make multiples and multiples on this hourly rate to fixed price differential. And I think that was really the key to this business. It wasn't even my idea, it was my business partner's idea, who was brilliant at like process management and SOPs and that sort of thing. So in terms of services, the biggest one is obviously content writing. That's sort of like top dog. We also do like SEO optimization. Sometimes people will give us articles that have been written by other people or articles that have been written by AI, and then we'll just turn that into an SEO optimized article. Now, the biggest like point of value, sort of like how this business works under the hood, is through a pretty complicated pipeline that we built out forever ago. So that is not the page that I wanted to show you guys. There you go. Basically, the way this works is this is a pipeline built in ClickUp that automatically assigns incoming tasks to writers based off of a templating system. So you'll come in and then, I don't know, you'll go over here and then you'll make a new task and you'll just call it like left click. I guess we don't have anything for left click. 1 second copy. So we don't have anything for that. NordVPN. Okay, cool. Maybe we'll do something for like NordVPN or something like that. When you give this button a click, what it'll do is it'll actually go out and it'll template a bunch of tasks with like the client tone of voice, the client, I don't know, like the style guide, the brief, and all that stuff. So it's a pretty autonomous system. We also have an app now, which unfortunately was not working very well in the month of August at all. We had to do a ton of refunds. Sorry, I think it's like app.1second copyright. Yeah, there you go. Where you sign into your app, and then instead of you having to do this sort of thing through like instead of us having to do this manually, we'll just click this add content button. You as a client will share whatever piece you want with us or whatever brief, and then it'll automatically be added into our pipeline for us, which is obviously a lot more preferable because we have no management costs, we have no issues. You provide the same style brief every time. It's a lot simpler. I'm not gonna lie, this is a massive pain in my ass to build. I would not consider myself a super fantastic developer or anything like that. This probably took me like several weeks of just, I don't know, face down, constantly smashing my head against the keyboard, trying to make this work. I don't even remember what I built this on. It's probably Next or Nuxt.js or something. Yeah, it was Nuxt, which, I love Nuxt. It's really cool, but man, was that a pain in the ass. I did not know how to develop a full stack app until that point in time. I used a bunch of like really hacky workarounds, which I would not recommend. So, looking back, it was great to have an app, and the app was making up a sizable portion of our revenue at one point, but realistically, that wasn't really the juice. The juice was the pipeline, which is, totally manageable through people. But yeah, so we started out this business primarily through Upwork again. I want to say like probably more than half of our initial revenue came from Upwork for the first few months. And then we branched out into providing sample articles to people using artificial intelligence for the most part. This is way before most people knew that artificial intelligence was capable of writing pieces. So obviously we had a ton of perceived leverage there. We would say, hey, do you want like an article written by an award-winning journalist that's been published in all of these fantastic places? We'll give you one for free. And if you like the quality, then we can talk about working together further. And if you think about it, like back in 2021, nobody knew what ChatGPT was. GPT-4 wasn't even a thing, right? People were like, oh, wow, that's actually pretty intense. Okay, sure. Give me one. And we'd ask for a keyword. We'd ask for a title. They'd give it to us. And then we just pump that shit straight through GPT-3, make a couple of edits. Obviously, we had humans in the loop. And then we'd send that back. And the reactions that we were getting from that marginal cost, which was like, I don't know, $5 a sample, were crazy. We had, I don't know, I think it was over like a 10% response rate on our cold emails, and we were sending them en masse using a platform called outreach.io. I don't know if outreach.io is still like the main. No, I don't think this is like a good or the best cold email platform nowadays. I think you probably do much better if you're using something like Instantly or Smart Lead. But at the time, yeah, Outreach was pretty sick. And the really cool part here was we built out a system that would take as input an email reply. So every time somebody replied to one of our emails, we would categorize that email. And then if it was a sample article, so if they said, yeah, I want to do the sample, here's the keyword, we would automatically take that instantly and then assign it to a writer in the queue using artificial intelligence. And this was like years before anybody else is doing any of this shit, which, we're pretty proud of because we basically like built the building blocks that now people do on a daily basis. That's like a feature that tons of these cold email platforms now provide and charge a fair amount of money for. So yeah, it was like basically completely autonomous, completely hands-off for quite a while. And that email system allowed us to scale to $90,000 a month where we peaked. As you can see now, we are a far cry from that, but it's just part and parcel. I saw the writing on the wall for this business quite a while ago. And it's not necessarily that I don't believe that this business can still grow. I just think that, per unit time invested in terms of my effort, it'll grow less than the other things that I'm now building. All right, revenue source number 3 is school. It generated me $60,968.25 in the month of August. So this is obviously the biggest revenue source. It's also the new kid on the block product that I launched. And I'm going to get deep into the strategy behind this. I'm going to get deep into how I, operate and manage my product, and really just give you guys a behind the scenes of what operating, a $60,000 or almost $61,000 a month school looks like. So if you're unfamiliar with school, it's a community building program. Communities are actually a relatively new business model. I don't want to say they're new, but they've been popularized quite recently. And school is probably like the largest community provider right now, just because Alex Hormozy, who is also a very big guy in like the service agency and the coaching space, recently invested a fair amount of money into it. Although I believe it was originally built by Sam Ovens, who exited consulting.com a few years ago too. So obviously a lot of heavy hitters here, and they're banking on communities being a big thing. I think when they showed a bunch of interest and they started launching a bunch of these promotional things, school as a concept and community as a concept blew up even more. But basically the main value proposition of a community, well, I guess there are a couple, but one of the main value propositions is it's like a group of entrepreneurs for the most part that are working on the exact same thing as you, that share resources, share wins, and share losses openly. So instead of you just having to blindly search, through the solution space of how to grow one of your companies, whether it's an agency or photography business or whatever, there are all sorts of communities. You get to leverage other people's wins, other people's failures. And then usually like a course or a program creator like myself will compile a bunch of resource and just centralize everything for you. So, that's one of the value props of this community. I set it up because way back in March, right after I launched my YouTube channel, it started growing a little bit. I started having a bunch of people being like, hey, Nick, I think you'd be perfect for a community. Have you considered launching a community? And I was like, the hell's a community, man? I didn't even know. So I had to start doing a little bit of research. And then I looked into what went into building the community, and I was like, shit, man, that sounds like a ton of work. I have to manage this thing every day. It's like turbo Reddit or something for making money. I was like, it sounds cool, but I don't know. I'm just going to stick to my YouTube videos. So I kept doing that for like another month. And then April came by, and I had a bunch of other projects for my automation agency that took up a fair amount of my time. And then May came by, and somewhere around mid-May or whatever, I think the number of comments I was getting per YouTube video, like if I got 10 comments per YouTube video, because I was much smaller back then, like 5 of them would be, hey, Nick, are you going to make that freaking community or what? So I was like, geez, well, I guess I have market demand for it, but I don't know. Like, I don't know if I can really do a good job on this, to be honest. And as you'll see, doubt is a pretty major part of what enabled me to make the 100K. But I ended up like going and joining a few other people's school communities. I ended up just like looking and seeing what the main value propositions were there. And I noticed that the vast majority of the people that had school communities, they didn't really get the value of these things, I think. They didn't really conceptualize the value in the way that people would understand. Like if I go to this about page here, like there are a few value props, right? But the simplest value prop is you get a bunch of templates. They're the best templates. They save you tens of thousands of dollars. They save you hundreds of hours. If you just copy and paste these templates in your system, you'll get like the best and the brightest in the space you're doing. I saw that very, very infrequently. Weekly office hours. Nobody was offering something like this where it was like, hey, once a week, you're going to get all the information that you need, or you're going to get like a personal and private QA with me. So I added that. Courses, right? So I think some people were offering courses at the time, but I like to think that my course was of substantially higher quality than most other communities. And then, the last value prop was the networking with a group of ambitious people in your space. One thing that I noticed that a lot of these communities did wrong is they just like didn't really moderate. And I think they kind of led through like, I don't really know what I want to call it. And I'm mindful of my words here, but there's a lot of ego involved in like the making money process, I want to say, or like the owning your own business. And it almost like contributed to this culture of, I don't know, it wasn't like fear or anything, but it was like this culture of you not being open to sharing what's going on in your business. So I solved this by making my community cap really low. I said that I'd cap it at 400 members. It would never go a single person above 400. The reason why it's 401 here is I just have like an admin in the course that's, help, or the community that's helping me moderate it. But, when it's a much smaller knit community, obviously people feel a lot more comfortable sharing. I also just shared, like I probably overshared a lot of my own life, what was going on with me. I think the way that I wrote all of the messages and all the copy made it clear that like, this isn't like some finance bro community where it's like everybody here's tough and we're all big boys, I wanted to make sure that anybody could join. I wanted to make sure that anybody that joined felt comfortable just talking about what's going on in their business, sharing it without fear that like they're adding competitors or whatever. And yeah, I think to be honest, I think I did a really good job. There were obviously some benefits of that as well. I was able to upsell my coaching here. So for instance, you can get one-on-one video consultations with me, 15 minutes, $295, 30 minutes, $500, 60 minutes, $870. And people started taking me up on this when I started using my community as like the mid-level funnel. And then I started providing discounts to members of the community, which helped incentivize that. There are obviously other benefits as well. If you think about this in terms of like broader business infrastructure, one thing that I didn't realize when I started this coaching space is there are multiple levels to this stuff. So, at like the bottom level, you're usually looking to turn people that have never really, won a client or don't really know what they're doing in business and turn them into the sort of person that runs a business. And then sort of like the second level is you're turning somebody that runs a business into somebody that like crushes it at business, somebody that makes hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, for instance. And so I miscalibrated a little bit because I made a general purpose community that just solved everybody's problem and everybody's complaint. But obviously it still ended up being hyper profitable, especially because this niche is just growing as quickly as it is too. So what's been really interesting for me over the course of the last few months is my revenue has transitioned from primarily agencies, right, where I was capping out at 72,000 to now the bulk of my income coming from school. Like my agency income in August was 37 something thousand dollars. And my school income was $60,000. So it's about 1.5 times as much. And seeing the transition there from primarily like providing services to people with some outcome to helping people like grow their own businesses has probably been the most fulfilling thing that I've ever done to date. So that's been pretty sick. I really like it. In terms of the actual services that I provide as part of MakeMoneyWithMake.com and my other community now, which is called Maker School, which I think is more granular, targeted to that new entrepreneur sort of audience, I provide daily QA. So literally every day I will come on here and then I will scroll through and then I will open every single notification that I get. And then I will try and answer every single one that I can. Sometimes I can't answer every single one because sometimes the questions that I get are like pretty intense. Like people want me to, I don't know, solve like a business problem that like would create a system that they could sell for $3,000 or something. Sometimes I do it anyway, just because it's like good practice for me. And I always like to keep my skills sharp. Because there's just so many different industries these guys work with. Like some work with e-commerce businesses, which I don't work with. Other people work with like security businesses, healthcare businesses. But for the most part, I will go through and answer as many of these as I can, usually in like a couple of hours. And then assuming that I answer all of these questions, then, I kind of leave it for the day. And then the next day I'll go on and I'll just repeat the process. That's the very first thing that I do, which is probably like one of the more valuable things, if I'm being honest, just the daily QA, accountability, and that sort of thing. The second thing is I'll do Loom roasts. So I'll go on the community. Let me just look up a roast. And I have a couple of different threads here. One's called I'll Roast Your Agency. So what happens is somebody will post their agency on this website, on this a link, and then I will go through it all and then record a pretty detailed video just giving them my detailed thoughts. Well, clearly not having a shirt on, over Loom as I, break down the agency, break down what I would do, break down why I think they can improve their copy or something like that. And I think the real point of value here is most people do not have anybody in their life that's just willing to give some shit to them straight. Like most people are going to send their first website off to their friends, be like, go guys, I'm building an agency. What do you guys think? And the guys that are receiving that, they're your friends and they don't want to hurt your feelings, obviously. And they also sort of have a vested interest in maintaining the friendship. So most of the time they're going to be like, dude, that looks great. Nice job. Keep going. Right. But I'm not like that. I just tell people earnestly what I think. And I've offended a fair number of people, if I'm being honest. I remember one time I roasted a guy's agency, and then he quit the community like within 5 minutes of me delivering that roast. So whatever. But the main value prop here is, I'm just going to tell you exactly what I think about this all the time, because I don't really have a vested interest in like being your friend or anything like that. I obviously would like to be your friend if possible. And I think I'm a lot of people's friends now, but the whole point of this is for me to give you exactly what you need to grow. And most of the time people want to get where I'm at. Right. So they take my opinion as gospel, probably like 70-80% of the time, I want to say. And it hits a lot harder when it's from somebody that you look up to, which enables them to make the changes faster than, waiting a year or something for the market to have to show it to them instead. So I do Upwork roasts. I'll roast people's Upwork profile. I'll do agency roasts. So I'll roast people's agencies. I do copy roasts. So people will send me like cold email campaigns that aren't performing well or that might be performing well. And they'll be like, Nick, what would you do to make it better? And this usually takes up like another half hour or so of my day. So, at this point, we're maybe at like an hour and a half or something like that, maybe 2 hours, I want to say. Then every Wednesday at 9 a.m. MT, I'll do a weekly office hour. And this is definitely the key point of value for a lot of people in the group. When we started, our turnout was a lot higher than it is now. I think our very first turnout was like 70 or 80 or something. And basically the way that it works is people will go over here and then they'll ask me questions. Oh, sorry, that's the recording. One sec. Let's do this one here. So people will ask me a ton of questions. So, hey, is there any pre-work data prep you do to create new automations? Is it beneficial to create separate YouTube playlists for different niches? What's the best way to go about doing market research, right? I'll just take those questions live and then I'll just answer all of them on my video call. Just for organizational purposes, I'll usually mute everybody on the call and then I'll just like make it so that we can't see their faces or them picking their noses or something. And then I'll just screen share and then run through the questions, question by question. And then at the end, I have a little space open where I think it's 15 minutes of the hour-long call. If you are unable to ask a question ahead of time in the weekly office hour thread, you can actually just come straight to the Zoom and then just ask your question directly and then I'll answer it. So a lot of people find a ton of value in this. I think that this is probably one of the more valuable parts of the community. It's obviously one of the parts that takes a lot of, my time and preparation. I don't just spend the hour on the video. I'll actually like do a little bit of prep work ahead of time, maybe like half an hour or so, just walking through my head. Is this the best way that I can answer this question? I don't just want to do it off the top of my head because sometimes I don't know, to be completely honest. Another point of value here and another thing that I have to do is I have to make programs. So I say 14-day agency here and Maker School. 14-day agency was my first iteration of this, which later transformed into Maker School. But essentially, if you go to Classroom in school, you'll see that there are a bunch of these modules that you can choose. So the weekly office hour recordings, we record every weekly office hour, for instance, and post it here. But more importantly, we have the Blueprint library and stuff like that. More importantly, we have these courses or these programs. And so here's a program right here called 14 Days to Build Your Agency. This is my first program. And what I do is I put a bunch of information like in text, and then I'll also record like a video, usually a very, very long video, walking people through how to do everything that they need to do in order to build out their automation agency. So the idea is this just multiplies my leverage a little bit so that I no longer have to be present all of the time. I don't actually have to physically be on a call on that weekly office hour in order for people to like continue making progress and moving forward. And then the idea is they do this, right? Maybe they do like 1, 2, 3 a week or something like that. And then if they have a question about it, then they ask me in the weekly office hour, I solve that question or I solve their problem, and then they can come back and like continue making progress. So a lot of people made a lot of agencies with this program. After I built this program, I was thinking about a better way to do it because I noticed that the number one issue was just the accountability. And I ended up settling on a new structure called Maker School, which is basically like a daily accountability program where I will actually go through and then I will walk people through like everything that they need to do on a daily basis. I'll say, hey, on day 1, do this and then do that. On day 2, do this and then do that. I'll show them everything that they need to do in like a little Loom video. So in terms of the production value, it's pretty straightforward for me to make. I did have to like lock myself in my room for like a week, but is what it is. And now that's offering a ton of value. And what I've done since then is I actually made a new community called Maker School. And Maker School actually just surpassed makemoneywithmake.com in terms of number of members. But basically Maker School just like takes that one program and then just makes that like I charge specifically just for that program, and I charge a much lower amount on a monthly basis than what I'm doing for makemoneywithmake.com. Yeah, I realize I'm rambling on a little bit, but that's another point of value. Next one's called Fireside Chats. So I work with one of my automation partners. His name's Santi. Santi's awesome. I love this guy. And he's taken it upon himself to build out, after somebody in the community asked for it, like a fireside chat sort of like Q&A session where we take people from our community that are really good at stuff, like this guy Carl here who, was running $100,000 a month PPC agency, and then they will come on and then basically do their own weekly office hour with a QA session as well. So we have had all sorts of people in here. We've had people in automation. We've had people in pay-per-click ads. We've had people that have been consultants for decades. We've had people that have built out SaaS companies using Make.com. And that's another really big point of value. And what I really like about this too, is if you think about it from my perspective, the rest of this community stuff, like it's pretty bottlenecked on me, right? It's based around my time. It's based around my personality and whatnot. Obviously people like me a lot, which is why they're in my community. But this is the first thing that I built within one of my structures that is not actually dependent on me. Like I'll show up and I'll try and motivate people and encourage them and, thank them profusely for doing one of these fireside chats. But I didn't actually deliver the presentation. It's not actually me. And so in this way, I'm slowly increasing the amount of leverage in this community, which I think is pretty cool. And I'm open to even expanding fireside chats. So maybe we have like 2 per week or something like that. I'm just currently waiting for a little more demand. The key thing that worked really well with this community was this member cap of 400. I know a lot of other communities out there have been launched by people in the automation space, and they're typically uncapped, and so they grow pretty explosively, if I'm being honest. That's cool, but with this community, I really wanted to keep that tight-knit feel, and I also like the idea of a cohort of people that start off as sort of beginners and then over several months become better and better and better. And that's actually what happened. We've had a number of people that have come in, and they've been making like $2,000 a month, and now they're making $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month. So it's crazy seeing that evolution, for one. If you think about it strategically from my perspective, I'm also sort of ensuring myself customers for future products that I build by doing this, because, these people that have made this massive progress, if I were to launch, let's say, a higher ticket product that might be, I don't know, like $10,000 a month or something like that, and it's just like unfettered access to me, 5 calls a week, I answer all the questions, I help you build out the systems, I over the shoulder consult, whatever the coaching setup is. The equation in people's minds is, well, when I paid Nick $20 a month, he delivered $2,000 a month worth of value. When I paid him $1,000 a month, he delivered $20,000 a month worth of value, or $200,000 a month. I bet you if I pay him $10K, he'll deliver me $2 million a month worth of value, or something like that, right? And obviously this is all prefaced upon the notion that I can't actually deliver that value. But I got to say, like when I started this, I definitely doubted my coaching abilities a little bit. I mean, it was the first time that I'd done coaching, not consulting. But over the course of the last few months, I've become substantially more confident in it. I've definitely realized just how valuable having somebody like me look over your shoulder, like clap you on the back every time you win, or guide you to the correct answer if you make a mistake, really is. So after putting in this 400 member cap, though, obviously, if you think about it from my perspective, like I'm not making as much money because I can't grow past 400 members. So I did 2 things in order to make more money with this community. The first is I started increasing the prices. So instead of it being like, I think we started at $28 or $38 or something, instead of just keeping it at that, every 10 or 20 or 30 members, or maybe 40 members back then, I would increase the price by, I believe, $10. And so it ended up capping at $128 a month. So 128 times 40, right? That's, I don't know, about 50,000. But not all of these members are paying the $128 a month. Most of them are somewhere between, probably the average like 98 or something like that. But after I got this, you'll notice this big red notification has been staring me in the face for, the last 45 minutes. There are currently 452 other people that want to get into this community. If I were just to let them all in and then they all paid $128 or whatever, obviously that'd, bump up my revenue by another $100,000, which is pretty awesome, right? But then I would also be kind of destroying my credibility a little bit. And then I would also be defeating the whole purpose of this community. So I like to think that the decisions that I'm making here are principled. They enable me to provide one-on-one support to all the people that are currently in. I'm not just running like a cash grab and just looking to let as many people in as possible to like squeeze it for a few months and get the hell out. Like, I think some other people might be. But the benefit to this, just to bring it all around, is, when you have 752 people that want to get into your community, like it's very impractical that all of them are actually going to be able to make it in, right? I mean, our churn is really low. I think it's like 1 every couple days realistically. So, I mean, that's like 15, 20 people a month, something like that, if that. So, how many months would it take to get through 750 people? Like 37 or something like that, which is 3 years. It's not very practical for a lot of these people to get in. But every now and then there'll be somebody that, is pretty well established in business that wants to get in regardless. And they were like, Nick, how much money do you want me to pay you to let me in, right? And I was thinking about it from a strategic perspective. So what I ended up doing was I should preface this with the fact that there's no way for school to automatically handle wait lists, or there wasn't when I came up with this. So I actually had to make my own system called makemoneywithmake.com with my own little landing page that actually took, instead of monthly payments, annual payments. And the idea was if you pay annually, I'm going to bump you to the front of the wait list. The average annual wait time was something like, let's see here. Well, now it's only 3 days. I need to update this. It's no longer 3 days. I think it's like 4 days or something like that. But essentially, this now represented a way where I could price differentiate, and people that wanted to pay me a ton more money, like 12 times the money, at least in the first month, or 11 times the money or something like that, could now do it and I could substantially improve my short-term revenue, which is awesome. Obviously, one of the biggest problems with communities as well is churn. And so this helps mitigate a lot of churn as well, which is valuable to me. So yeah, another thing is I find people that pay the annual plan are also substantially more committed. They're a lot more engaged. They're obviously a lot, I don't want to say they're a lot more ambitious out of necessity, because, they just tend to have more money for sure. But they do tend to be more ambitious as well, which is quite nice. And then from there, they end up winning disproportionately more, and then they get a bigger return on their investment. And then other people in the group are like, oh, how the hell did that guy do it? And it's like, that guy paid annually. Right. And then it sort of starts that flywheel, which is quite beneficial from my perspective. All right. My next big revenue source, well, big is a relative term, but my next revenue source was Gumroad for $1,613.48. So Gumroad is just a platform where you can basically host digital products and then have those digital products managed for you and then sold or something. So this is my Gumroad for that month of August. And the vast majority of my income came from a few blueprints that I put up. Basically, the way this works is, like, if you go to any one of my YouTube videos, there'll be like a Gumroad link. And I think, I don't even remember where this Gumroad link is. I'm just trying to get the link directly in my browser. But I'm just going to click here instead. So let's just sort this based off revenue. Oh, I think that'll be descending. Yeah. Basically, the way that it works is after I'm done with a video, I come out with usually like a blueprint or something, or some sort of lead magnet. And then I will add that to my YouTube description just as a link. And then by me doing this, I'm basically showing people like, hey, I'm giving you all this stuff for free. Just click this link and then you'll download it. But then what's really interesting, and I think when I really realized that I had product brand fit or something, or brand market fit, was I made it free. And then I said, you could get this for free. You don't have to pay anything. You can also donate if you want to. And then, people have now donated over $1,000 for this, I think, in just the last few months, which is pretty crazy. $690 for that one, $224 for that one, right? So it's a lot of these people just opting in to paying me money, which is pretty cool. And that makes me feel freaking amazing, because I'm like, wow, I must be offering a disproportionate amount of value for people to do that. The reason why I came up with this is because the way that I was doing blueprints before was simply inefficient. I didn't actually think that I was going to make any money off this, but some people make $1,600 a month, and that's their whole income. And I get to make that basically completely passively through Gumroad, which is sick. Yeah, previously you had to download blueprints through a Google Drive link or something, and it was just really impractical, and you could see all the JSON and all the code. So all I did was I moved to Gumroad because I thought it'd be a better experience for other people, not necessarily because I thought that there was some grand strategy that would enable me to make more money. All right. The next source of revenue was YouTube ads, which made me $1,723.95 in August. So yeah, YouTube ads are obviously pretty awesome. I will say my YouTube revenue has tanked recently. The reason why is because, I think the reason why is because I tried updating all of my YouTube videos at once, and I went through 70 videos and just alt-tabbed super quickly. And I think what happened is I loaded a ton of ads, something like that. And then me loading that ton of ads crushed me. I don't know why that says 846. Oh, hold on. So it's not that I generated 846 in August. It's that the payout from, I bet you this is what happened. The payout from July probably hit, right? Yeah, okay, so the payout of July hit. And you can actually see when the revenue tanked, right? I was making $114 a day on YouTube ads, which is, over $3,000 a month. Then all of a sudden, they call it their content warning or something, invalid traffic warning. I don't know. I'm not going to speak ill about YouTube, since obviously they built my whole business, but I definitely did not have any invalid traffic there, guys. Anywho. So yeah, YouTube ads made me $1,723.95. The reason I'm making that money is obviously because I monetize my videos. It just means that I show ads. So if you're watching this with an ad blocker, thank you. You probably helped me make a few cents in just the last couple of minutes. I very much appreciate it. And yeah, I sort of tested between monetizing my videos and then not. And what I found was really interesting was I think YouTube was boosting monetized videos or something, because the videos that I monetized actually ended up with slightly more views than the videos that I didn't monetize. Not entirely sure why. I don't know if you can call this a corrupt practice if you want. They're obviously just getting their bag. But for me, it was even less about the monetization aspect, and it was just more about me getting the views and getting the reach. So I'm obviously happy to make $1,700 a month through YouTube. No issues there. My last revenue source for the month of August was affiliate revenue, which made me $937.92. This is right before my affiliate revenue started taking off. Basically doubled the month after that. And I think I don't know if it's exactly doubled since then. The way that affiliate payouts work typically is you have like these 4 or 5 different platforms, First Promoter, Get Rewardful, Partner Stack, Impact or something. And then some of them pay out 30 days, other ones pay out like 60 days. And I think like companies can come up with their own freaking payout procedures. So this is very difficult for me to calculate the $937.92, but this comes from platforms like Instantly, Appify, Make.com, Phantom Buster, right? These all have affiliate links that I now include in my YouTube descriptions, and I also include as part of my community signups. So when somebody comes into my community, particularly my lowest ticket community, Maker School, they don't really know what they're doing for the most part. So they're going to sign up to whatever software platform I put in front of them, as long as I make sure that it's affordable and it's high quality. And so that's what I've done. I've basically built it like an onboarding flow where people will sign up to my affiliate platform, and then I get a little chunk of that money every single month. So obviously, very cool. And I like it. All right, so now that we've finished with the whole financial breakdown, I just want to talk about a couple of principles, particularly principles, and then maybe some mindset, because this is probably my favorite part of YouTube videos that I used to watch that did stuff like this, where people would just like go through the revenue and break it down. As I'm sure you guys could tell, I'm not like the typical YouTuber insofar that I don't really make everything super polished, and probably hasn't been as pound for pound as efficient time-wise as some other videos. But that's actually one of the principles that I want to talk about. So I'm just going to run you through, guys. I'm going to run you guys through my own mindset here, and what I think has enabled me to hit like a 6-figure monthly revenue. The first is not to fear doubt, but to embrace it. What I mean by this is, the month of August, for instance, I had no idea that offering annual memberships was going to work. I was actually really scared. I was on a walk with a really good friend of mine at a park here in Calgary. And I was like, man, I have this massive problem where all these people are on the wait list and there's just no way they're going to get in. And he's like, well, some of these people are probably willing to pay you whatever it takes to get in, because that's just the value that they ascribe to you, that they assign to you. So you should find a way to, like offer different payment tiers that product differentiate that allow you to do that. And I was so hung up on that. I waited like 2 weeks and I was like, shit, should I do this? Can I do this? I was really worried, honestly. I think that a lot of the time, people on YouTube or people that make these seemingly large amounts of money for a lot of us, definitely a lot amount of money for me, they seem like they sort of have it all figured out, right? And it's like, oh, that guy is just super mega confident and he understands everything strategically and he has like a 700-step plan or program. And sometimes this is true. Sometimes you have these like genius masterminds that make these giant ass plans and they somehow actually work. But I think in reality, that typically does not happen. That definitely did not happen in my case. Basically what occurs is I heavily doubt myself. And I think that by doubting myself and my abilities, I actually end up producing a slightly higher quality product than if I did not doubt myself entirely. So you can call this a pursuit of perfectionism, or you can call this like a desire to do really well by your clients, or goodwill, or whatever the hell. But in my case, every time that I've just embraced the doubt and I've said, shit, I really don't know if this is going to work. Fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway. The results tend to be substantially better than I think if I had just like went ahead with either the status quo, or if I had been super confident this is going to work ahead of time. I know that Elon Musk talks a lot about this, and I think Elon's become quite the controversial figure recently, but I don't think that changes anything to do with the business that he's done in the past. He talks a lot about doubt and how everybody always thinks that, entrepreneurs are necessarily super crazy and confident and cool and they have it all figured out. But like, he's actually always scared. And I think about that a little bit as well. I wouldn't say scared is the right term, but there's definitely just this big field of uncertainty in front of me most of the time when it comes to business. And every time that I've just stepped through that uncertainty regardless, I've usually made some big revelation, or I've broken some big plateau. So anytime that you feel yourself pushing in a direction of uncertainty, there's this old Stoic aphorism that says the obstacle is the way. If that's the obstacle, and if you sense an obstacle, you should probably just go there anyway. It's almost like a signpost saying, hey man, this is where success lies. The second thing I want to talk about is just focus on revenue generating activities. There are so many activities that I was doing on a daily basis that were not revenue generating. Like I want to say the vast majority of the activities that I was partaking in up until maybe 7 months ago. Well, maybe 7 months ago isn't the right term. Maybe like a year ago, were not revenue generating activities. I would still make a fair amount of money because I was focused on a lot of activities, and some of them happen to pan out disproportionately. But ever since I started like restricting my scope to maybe top 3, top 4, top 5 daily actions, which usually involves either some type of daily outreach, some type of content creation, some type of sales call, some type of getting on the phone with your clients or something of that nature, my revenue and my profits have both skyrocketed. So, as a key part of Maker School, I get everybody to focus on daily revenue generating activities. I've actually like restricted the number of things that you can do on a daily basis. I've purposely slowed the program down, and I say like, okay, all you do today is you apply to 10 jobs on this platform, you create 3 cold email campaign offers, and then you make a piece of content on this community, for instance. I artificially restrict these because I want people never to get overwhelmed with all of the various pieces of bullshit involved in being a business owner and an entrepreneur. I only want them to focus on things that are like disproportionately revenue generating, like, outreach, sales, content creation, that sort of thing. So if I could offer you one piece of advice, this would definitely be it. Ever since I started focusing on revenue generating activities, like my hourly rate has shot way the hell up. The last thing is just to talk openly about what you're doing. I'm obviously a little biased here, but again, just like every time I've stepped through that wall of doubt, I've succeeded. Every time that I've just talked openly about where I'm at, whether it's like my revenue, whether it's my uncertainty about the future, whether it's about my strategy, whether it's about my plans, I've always succeeded more because of it. So you can also think about this video as me being kind of a little bit biased, right? I know that every time in the past I've talked openly about what I'm doing, I succeed more. So I'm like, maybe I should start talking openly about what I'm doing again. Maybe I'll succeed more. I don't think this is going to directly drive me money, but I think this just builds a culture of goodwill. It builds a culture of positivity, builds a strong culture of reputation. And you'd be very surprised at just how many people out there on the internet have fat stacks and they're willing to pay somebody that they like, trust, and respect. That's it for me. If you guys have made it to the end of this video, y'all are freaking troopers. I love every last one of you. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any comments or questions, just leave them down below and I'll get back to them as soon as I can. If you guys liked what you saw or heard about Maker School and MakeMoneyWithMake.com, definitely queue up to join those communities. And again, let me know if you have any questions surrounding those. Otherwise, if y'all could like, subscribe, leave a comment down below for the